Hey guys, how's it going? Chet here, and welcome to this video series which takes a look at my practice routine and the techniques and theory that I'm currently practicing to develop my playing as a guitarist. Today what we're going to be looking at is the part of my routine which is designed to improve my ability to both play and visualize triads on the fretboard. Now, why do I want to do this? Well, I want to sound like these guys when I improvise. Now these guys are masters at playing in general, but having analysed them for a while, there's one thing that I can definitely see which I can bring into my playing straight away, and that's my ability to highlight chord tones over the chord changes I'm soloing over. Now the basic building blocks of chords, whether they're the first chords you ever learn or more complex jazz harmony, is triads. If you can get good at visualising your triads on the neck, then when you're soloing, you know where the good notes are, so to speak. These good notes are called chord tones. Now if you manage to highlight them when the chords are actually changing, you're going to lock in much better with the harmony of the music, and as a result have a much more melodic solo. That's why triads are so important, and if you know your harmony well enough, you can apply these triads in a more complex way to sound even more sophisticated while you're playing. Now if you don't yet know what a triad is, don't worry, but do subscribe to my account and make sure you click the bell notification icon, because what I'm going to be doing in the future is a whole series diving into music theory and the way I like to think about these concepts from a theoretical standpoint. You'll then be able to use these videos as support for when you're applying the theory to your own instrument, or doing musical direction or songwriting. The list goes on. It's so important to know your music theory and be able to apply it as well. In the meantime, if you do have any questions about this video, or music theory in general, or anything music related, feel free to put it in the comment section below. As always, I'll be responding to each and every comment, so fire away. Now, back to the way that I'm practicing triads and their inversions on the guitar specifically. Because of the way the guitar is constructed, we can actually play one note in multiple different places on the fretboard. Now as a result of this, you can actually then play triads in many different ways on the fretboard as well. For example, ta-da! I can demonstrate this using a C major triad, which is the notes C, E, and G. The first thing to kind of consider is whether you want to play that as an arpeggio, so one note after another, or as a chord. If you want to play it as an arpeggio, it opens up a few options like this. If I play C, I find an E and a G. I've got my first triad, it's going perpendicular across the neck. I can play that same thing parallel to the neck. I've got C, E, and G. I can combine the two. I've got C, E, and a G up here. I can go over here where I've got the exact same C and do all the same things. I can go an octave higher. There's loads of different options. If you want to play these as chords, you'll assign one note per string, so you're picking 3 strings at the same time. So for example, and we have to consider all of the inversions as well. If we start considering inversions, we don't just need to stick to 3 string groupings like that. I've got all 3 strings adjacent there. We can actually start spreading them out, hence spread triads or open voicings. So an example of that, those are spread voicings. Now, because there's so many different options here, it can be really overwhelming when actually trying to practice triads. At least it is for me. I'm thinking, oh wow, I need to practice every single one of these things before I can master it. And yeah, that's the eventual aim, right? So I want to be able to play and visualize triads anywhere on the neck in any way possible. But if I was to approach it that way and actually try and practice all of those different variations all at once, it would actually probably just demoralize me a little bit, number one, and probably be counterproductive and end up confusing me. So I wanted to come up with a methodical way of actually practicing this. And like anything, when there's too much to look at, the best solution is to come up with a set of rules which actually restricts the possibilities down to just a small number. So I guess we could call this exercise level 1 to learning triads and inversions. And once we master level 1, we can then come to level 2, which looks at different ways to play a triads and master that in that particular practice routine. So the first rule we're going to use to reduce the number of ways of playing a triad on the guitar is the fact that we have to have one chord tone per string. So we can't do something like this. C, E, and G. We can do something like this. C, E, and G. So we still have the options of playing spread voicings. I want to remove that from my practice session. So to remove that, what I'm going to do, rule number 2. Rule number 2 says that I have to have adjacent strings only. Now by doing that, I create 4 sets of 3 strings. Okay, now what I mean is you have the E, B and G strings together, you have the B, G and D strings together, you have the G, D and A strings together, and you have the D, A and low E. So those are your 4 sets. Now if we're looking at inversions, we can still do something like this. C, G and E. And I want to remove those possibilities as well. I want to keep this as basic as possible. So the third rule that I'm going to introduce is the fact that this triad has to be playable as a chord. Now what this does is actually restricts the number of ways of playing a triad and its inversions to only 3 different chord shapes per string set. So what I mean by this, if I use the C major triad as an example, I've got root position, first inversion, and second inversion. So we're covering most bases here with our methodical approach. Likewise with the next set, there'll be 3 different shapes, and with the third and fourth sets as well. So you can see that by using these 3 parameters, we've actually reduced the number of ways of playing a triad and its inversions down to only 12 shapes across the guitar, which is much easier to handle in practice. So once you've then mastered those 12 shapes, call that level 1, then level 2, you can look at mastering another way of playing triads. For example, if I want to arpeggiate the triads across the neck, like this. And so on and so on. That will be level 2. Then you can do another way for level 3, for example, maybe spread triads. That's the way I like to practice and actually feel like I'm getting somewhere. I create these small chunks and then I don't get overwhelmed by the amount of information that's out there. Right, so now for the exercise itself and actually how to practice it. The first thing we need to do is actually look at the 3 shapes per string set. We need to do that for the major triads, the minor triads, diminished triads and augmented triads. So first off, the C major triad and its inversions on string set 1, which is the E, B and G strings. Root position, first inversion, second inversion. String set 2, second inversion, root position, first inversion. String set 3, first inversion, second inversion, root position. You can also play root position down here and play the open string G. String set 4, second inversion, root position, first inversion. Those are all of your major triad shapes. Now to the minor triads. String set 1, root position, first inversion, second inversion. String set 2, second inversion, root position, first inversion. String set 3, first inversion, second inversion, root position. String set 4, second inversion, root position, first inversion. Next is your diminished triads. String set 1, root position, first inversion, second inversion. String set 2, second inversion, root position, first inversion. String set 3, first inversion, second inversion, root position. String set 4, second inversion, root position, first inversion. Now we're going to look at the augmented triads. Augmented triads are stacked in major thirds. So what you're going to find here is that the shapes are always the same as we go up the neck. You'll see what I mean once I get started here. So, set 1, root position. Now, each one of these strings is going to go up a major third. C is going to go to E, E is going to go to G sharp, and G sharp is going to go to C. So what we've got is the exact same shape. Everything is going up by the same interval. But we have the first inversion now. Likewise, if I go up a further major third, we get the second inversion. And those are the shapes for set 1 for C augmented. Set 2, second inversion, root position, first inversion. Again, all the same shapes. Set 3, root position, first inversion, second inversion. Set 4, second inversion, root position, first inversion. Right, so now you know your triads and inversions in the key of C.
Whoop-de-doo! What does it all mean, Basil?
But we're not always in the key of C, right? So the way to practice this is to play the triads up and down on each set, and then when you get to the end, you're going to go round in the circle of fourths or fifths, whichever you feel more comfortable with, and play the triads of each key until you've covered all 12 keys. Now that might seem like it's going to take ages, right? But if we take a metronome and set it at 60 BPM, so that's 1 click per second, and aim to do 1 triad shape per second, going up and down in one key for the major triads, for example, is going to take 24 seconds, right? Up and down, 12 shapes. So once you've done your 24 seconds on one key, you then have to do 12 more keys. So we've got 24 times 12. That's going to be 288 seconds. Right, so 288 seconds and you've done all of your major triads. Then you've got to do your minor, diminished and augmented. So we're going to times that by 4 and you get 1,152 seconds. That's 19.2 minutes to cover the whole exercise. That's actually not that long for a guitar workout, so no excuses. As I've said, this is just the first step in mastering your triads. You could take these shapes and apply them to a key if we harmonise the major scale. We would take those triads and take them through the whole key up and down the neck. This is a really, really useful exercise because when you're improvising, you don't just have to stick with one triad over one chord. You could start implying some really colourful extensions if you think about playing one triad over another one. For example, if the band are playing a 1 chord in the key of C, as a soloist, I might choose to play the F major triad on top. Now what that does is implies the extensions 11 and 13 on top of the C major chord, because in the F major triad we have F, A and C. F is the 11, A is the 13. So you can see, if you know your triads really well, you can actually get really sophisticated sounds when improvising just by playing different triads over different chords. You can take this one step further and take triads from different keys and play them over other triads and see how they sound, but we're getting way past ourselves here. All we're trying to do right now is visualize these triads on the neck so that we can play them comfortably without thinking. Remember, when you're practicing these triads, don't just remember the shape. Actually think about the root note, the third and the fifth and where they're located. And if you can, think about the actual notes that you're playing as well. It's a great idea to be able to practice all of those things at once. You'll be really surprised at what you end up absorbing. So there you go, a nice methodical triad exercise that you can add to your practice routine. So as you may know, the videos that I'm making on this channel are demonstrating exactly how I'm practicing to better myself as a musician. So I've already added this workout to my practice routine. If you'd like to see exactly how I'm applying these triads to my improvising, as well as other concepts, make sure you follow me on my Instagram page as well. It's @ChetJogia. Also remember, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and click on the bell notification icon below, because once you've mastered level 1 of triads, you're going to want to know level 2, as well as some more advanced concepts to maybe tackle some of the things I mentioned towards the end of this video. If you did enjoy this content, I'd really appreciate it if you liked the video and shared it around with anyone you think might be interested in it. And as always, if you've got a question on this subject or any musical topic in general, feel free to put it in the comment section below and I'll get back to it as soon as I can. Cheers guys, and I'll catch you next time.